twist here. Get comfortable.
Evening, everyone. My name is James Kilgore. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Outreach for First Followers. Just so people are aware, we are recording this session, so if you don't want to be recorded, I'm just giving you a warning. We're very excited to be doing this session this evening on disability rights and disability rights, reentry, and racism. We've been wanting to address some of these issues for quite some time within First Followers. For people who don't have visual access or full visual access to the program, I'm just want to tell you that I'm an elder white man with limited brown hair and blue eyes, and I'm wearing a black ball cap, and I will from time to time put on some black rimmed glasses, and I'm wearing a t-shirt that says H3 on it, H3 standing for harm, healing, and hope. So that's just by way of providing access to people. We're trying to talk about issues of access here as we move forward with our program. So I do want to say that it's a great honor to introduce, my friend, my colleague, comrade, James Tygar Corbin. I think a lot of people know him as probably the person in Champaign County who knows more about resources for people coming home from prison than anyone. If someone needs housing, if they need employment, if they need an ID, if they need to connect with their families, whatever they need, Tygar is usually the man on the spot. If he can't solve the problem, if he doesn't have access, he will definitely make it happen. So it's a great pleasure to have him shifting gears here tonight, because as most of you know, Tygar is a person who uses a wheelchair, and he's a disability rights activist. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about that aspect of his work, which he hasn't shared as widely as he might have previously. So we're going to try to have a broader discussion about that. And this is part of First Followers beginning to have some discussions about knowing your rights and how to build power to enforce your rights. So we're going to be talking about other rights that people have that need to be interrogated and that we need to be organized in order to make rights into a reality. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tygar and let him finish off this introduction, and we look forward to his presentation. If people have questions, we ask you to drop them in the chat, and we'll try to answer them at the end of the presentation. So let me hand it over to Tygar.
All right. Thank you, James, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, everybody, for showing up here tonight for this enthralling discussion that we at First Followers, like James said, we are committed to finding and looking into successful reentry to reverse recidivism, lower the rate, and we just pay attention. We got boots on the ground. With that being said, my name is James Corbin. I usually go by the acronym of Tygar, which I changed, and it stands for Transforming Your Goals in Reality. It's a personal set of tenets that I live by, that I design my new life by, I would say, and not allowing my circumstances to determine how high I go. So with that, every time I say that name, it's an empowerment, self-empowerment about me being the goal setter of my own life and making my own life story instead of just settling for what someone says from the outside, who or what I should be. And that goes into, with me having a disability, as well as coming from the South Side of Chicago, and a Black male in lower, earning neighborhoods such as Robert Taylor, Roseland. So that's why I use that acronym. Anybody want to know? So that's why. But a little bit about myself. I am an activist, social activist, also a social entrepreneur. I am dedicated to building community. That's my main focus. That's one of my passions. Building community is first and foremost my original motivator. Doing anything that I do. That's why, I'm sure a lot of you know that, who know me. I am not here for myself. I'm here for my people. And that's all of you as well as the others. So that, I'll leave it right there with that. Let's see. I have 2 kids, 2 sons. And, oh, you got it, James? Okay. Yeah, I have 2 sons. And let me change I'm having a little switch something around here. 2 sons, and I have a few grandkids. I'm proud of all of them. They some great grandkids. I love all of them. And I just, I like family. I'm a family-oriented guy. I am down with family. Let's see what else. Oh, like James said, let me describe myself. James and I this is my first time doing this. So I am a Black male with a small, medium build or medium, tone build, short hair, glasses, use a wheelchair to get around. Some might say I'm kind of handsome, but I'll go with it. Whatever they say, I'm okay with. So that's for my visually impaired people out there. Let's talk a little bit about what kind of got me into this. I would say what got me into this, what got me started in this line of work was I am in a wheelchair. It was due to a gunshot, 1991. So I got 30 years experience, which makes me an expert in this subject, I feel, dealing with this, as well as being formerly incarcerated. So I understand both sides of pretty much what drives these type of individuals. And we started seeing a correlation. I would say the work I do is mostly reentry work for first followers, as well as, like James say, outreach coordinator and finding other resources. So that's what got me into this work. What got me started, I would say I had great support, which is why I feel that it's more of my responsibility to become an advocate. I have wonderful people in my life, such as Miss Kat Ertl. I know she's on here, Miss Arnetta Tolliver, as well as mom, dad. And with that support system, I feel like I was blessed, I was lucky. So I got to do what I got to do. Like they said, anytime you get, that much responsibility on you or that blessed, you got to give it back. And that's what I'm doing now. And everybody don't make it as far as I do. I understand that. My education, I have a master's degree from University of Illinois Springfield, most in social service. And I have a graduate degree, a bachelor's degree from Chicago State, as well as an associate degree from Parkland College. So it has been a long, arduous trip to get to this point. And I would just say this, that this is mainly for the betterment of the community. That's why I'm doing this. So let's get into a little bit. And James, can I get that first slide, if you don't mind? But that's who I am. And I'm glad, like I said, glad to meet you. So today's agenda for this discussion will be disability defined, the public impact of disabilities. We definitely got to cover the history of disabilities. And I want to talk about who I'm going to dedicate this show to tonight. Primary drivers for disability rights, the Americans with Disability Act, which is a very important article that we really need to cover. And I want to cover barriers as well as social justice reform and reframing our thinking to create more inclusion for disability rights. We wanna make more individuals like me feel welcome to join into this fight, because it's gonna take all of us to keep moving this ball forward. So tonight, I call this the power of five. These are the 5 key takeaways for this presentation. Number 1 is equality and accessibility. One of the central things is the importance of assuring equality and accessibility for individuals with disabilities in all aspects of life, including education, which we're going to watch a short video too with Miss Judy Harmon, who I'm blessed to have in contact with her, and employment, as well as healthcare and public spaces. Equal rights and opportunities should be the foundation of a just society. They should be the foundation, but as you can see, we still fight the same battles ever since the 60s, 50s, and so on. But empowerment and self-advocacy, that's number 2. People with disabilities should be empowered to advocate for themselves and have their voices heard. Their experiences, perspectives, and insights are invaluable in shaping policy, services, as well as attitudes toward disabilities. Number 3, inclusion and diversity. Inclusion goes beyond mere accommodation. It involves creating an environment where people with disabilities can fully participate and contribute to society. Embracing diversity and recognizing the unique talents and capabilities of individuals with disabilities enriches our community. The more diversity you have, the more enrichment you have. Number 4, collaboration and solidarity. Achieving meaningful change requires collaboration among individuals with disabilities. And number 5, legal protection. Discussing the legal framework and policies that protect the rights of individuals with disabilities is essential. Laws such as American with Disabilities Act, the ADA, aim to ensure equal opportunities and prohibit discrimination. Now, with that being said, I said I want to dedicate this show to somebody very special, who I had a moment to meet. This is Miss Judy Harmon, Miss Judy Human. She is known as the Rolling Warrior. And I was blessed to meet her through an acquaintance and someone dear to my heart, Miss Kathleen Ertl, who put us in contact. And I'm going to play this clip. I'm going to tell you what Judy, the conversation that Judy and I had. And it brought a lot of light to something, because I had a hard time embracing my disability. James, could you play that clip, please?
Since childhood, Judy Human has faced ableism, institutionally, socially, and personally. New York's public school system prevented her from enrolling, and she was often bullied or excluded by her own peers. After a lifetime of activism, she is finally seeing a shift in how people with disabilities are viewed and treated. Her book is called Being Human, an unrepentant memoir of a disability rights activist. And she's the star of tonight's Brief but Spectacular.
When I was 5 years old in Brooklyn, New York, on East 38th Street, my mother did what every other parent did when their kid was 5. She took me to school to register me. And this was in the early 1950s. There were no motorized wheelchairs, so she pushed me to school, and it wasn't accessible. She pulled me up the steps, and the principal said I couldn't go to school because I was a fire hazard. I don't really know that there was an explanation. It just was. I think the average person, they see disability as a threat to not being able to do things as people have typically done them. And I think there's truth in that. But the question is it because one has a disability, or because society itself has constructed itself in such a way because they haven't seen us? Discrimination against disabled people has existed from the beginning of time. And we're in a place right now where, because of other movements, civil rights movement, the women's movement, Black Lives Matter movement, etc., people are speaking up and out. One of the first pieces of legislation that the disability community really engaged in was getting regulations developed for a provision of law called Section 504. Section 504 says you can't discriminate against someone who has a disability if the entity is receiving money from the federal government. It was the first time that many of these young disabled people felt a part of something and really felt that they were making a difference, not only for their lives, but for the lives of many others. There is a shift, I believe, going on in our society where we're looking at race and gender equality and disability as issues that we need to address, that diversity is something that makes our companies stronger, that diverse businesses provide better services for customers. I also am a very big believer that the disability rights community cannot stand on its own. We need to be working with all other movements, and we want all other movements to be inclusive of disabled people. If we are actively learning and working together, we can do things like make sure when housing is being built in our communities that it's accessible, not just for people who have physical disabilities today, but if you're gonna have a physical disability tomorrow. I think having a disability really has allowed me to do and get in touch with so many things and opportunities that otherwise would not have happened. People look at us as the label of our disability. And it is a part of who we are, but it is not who we are. My name is Judy Heumann, and this is my brief but spectacular take on the disability rights movement.
Judy Heumann, so inspiring to every one of us. Thank you.
Wow. So let me give you the backstory with this. When I had a chance to talk with Judy on a call, I used a term called differently able, and she didn't like that. And I asked her, why didn't you like that? What's wrong with differently able? And she told me, she said that if you change the language, then that will allow for the, let's say the status quo to say, well, they're differently able, they're not disabled, we don't have to make these changes. And what it did was it shook the core, because I don't think I really embraced my disability until after that. You know, I would use something like differently able to these terms, but when you think about it, what she said, and we just saw this happen too with the Supreme Court kind of turning Martin Luther King's words against him, in a sense, by saying, you know, be judged by a character, not by that. So I went back to disabled, and I used that. And I thank Judy for defining that, you know, and what is it right now? So we got on there right now, the definition of a disability. And I'm sorry, I missed some words up in here, but the definition of a disability is a person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or two, I left a word out of there, major life activities. And we need to keep those definitions in place, because it's not over. We're just really getting started. We lost Miss Judy March of this year. May she rest in peace. And I would just like to dedicate this show to her, this whole presentation, because she has inspired me to embrace this, as well as move forward and bring about more change in her honor. So Ms. Judy Harmon, I thank you for that, you know, getting me on the right track. Sorry about that, I got a little choked up, but just thank you. So disability rights. The rights of disabled people, stay right there a minute, James. The rights of disabled people to be treated without discrimination and to experience equality of opportunity with able people. Now, before we move on, ask a question here. And this question is very important because once we got to doing this research, I never understood how many people were affected by this. And it just blew my mind. And that's why I really got to share this. And we all will be touched by a disability. If you keep living, eventually you will get some form of disability. So it goes without saying, we got to keep moving the ball. But one of the questions I'm gonna pose is, how many of you have encountered someone with a physical or mental disability or impairment? How many of those same individuals which you have encountered found themselves caught up in the complexities of the legal system, meaning you don't go on to court, doing time, or facing possible jail time? I'm not gonna, right now, that's just a hypothetical question, but as someone who deeply involved in the daily aspects of reentry work, I am acutely aware of the numerous challenges faced by formerly incarcerated individuals stricken by physical or mental impairments. As you know, I myself am a formerly incarcerated individual, as well as someone who has mobility impairment issues. I use a wheelchair, like I said earlier. So I deeply understand the need to cover this topic. And tonight, we're just gonna join me in shedding some light on the often overlooked struggles of disabled Americans, with a particular focus on the intersectionality between disabled, race, and the criminal justice system. So all these are tied into one main aspect. Next slide, please, James. Yep. So now the mainstream disability movement, what Judy was part of, and I take nothing away from them. They did an awesome job moving this forward. But the mainstream disability movement, I would say right now, has made some great strides in the past and continued progress. But within that same movement, there's a significant oversight in addressing the specific needs of disabled individuals from minority communities. See, the experience of a disabled American from diverse racial backgrounds are seldom given attention they deserve. And tonight, we're gonna delve into some of these tensions that we need to kind of review. So I would say this disparity, recognizing the crucial significance, acknowledging the unique challenges faced by Black and Brown disabled Americans. A disability is not just a standalone experience, but rather an interwoven collective occurrence with the larger society and cultural fabric of society. So, it's shaped by the surroundings. It has a cultural bearings to it. For Black and Brown disabled individuals, this interplay can have profound implications, shaping their journey in distinct ways. Their experience of disabilities are not solely a result of birth with the Black and Brown community. Most of our experience with disabilities is a result of trauma influenced by violence or medical neglect. This is different. This reality deserves our full attention as we work towards a more equitable and just society. So, diverse perspectives of disabilities. The portrait of disability within mainstream narratives is often limited or dominated by perspectives that fail to represent the rich diversity within the disabled community. Tonight, again, we're going to aim to broaden our understanding of disabilities through an intersectional lens. We want to look through an intersectional lens at disabilities and exploring now race, ethnicity, and social economic factors influencing the experience of disabilities for Americans. By recognizing and embracing their diverse perspective, we can foster a more, I would say, inclusive dialogue and pave the way for meaning change. One critical aspect that rarely receives, I would say, adequate attention is the profound impact of the criminal justice system on disabled individuals, particularly in the Black and brown communities. This does not get the right attention. The intersectionality of race and disability creates unique challenges, very unique, very different experience, leading to disproportionately higher rates of involvement with law enforcement, inadequate access to justice, and the perpetuation of systematic inequalities. Understanding this connection is essential for developing effective strategies to address those systematic issues. Now, while doing this research, it turns out that disabilities really truly affect us all. Now, this is where the rubber hits the road. Next slide, James, please. So before you answer that question, now disabilities are an intrinsic part of the human experience, right? Encompassing a wide range of conditions or impairments that may affect an individual's physical, cognitive, sensory, or emotional abilities. Let's see, these challenges can significantly deviate from the usual standard, making it essential for us to comprehend and address their impact on individuals and society. As a whole, as we embark on this journey, exploration, we aim to shed light, a little bit more light on a prevalence of disabilities and the far-reaching consequences they bring to the lives of countless Americans. So that's a good question. What size of the population has what side of the population considered to have a disability? This is very good. The magnitude of the impact becomes apparent when we consider that a disability within our society is astonishingly. Next slide, James, there you go. 1 in 4 adults in the United States, accounting for approximately 27%, that is large, 27% of the population live with some form of disability. I didn't know that. This staggering figure underscores the importance of recognizing and addressing the challenges faced by this substantial segment of our population. That's a lot of people. So with that, oh, I'm sorry, hold on. That being said, pardon me, y'all, sorry about that. But continually furthermore, it emphasizes the need for comprehensive support systems and as well as inclusive policies that can empower individuals with disabilities to lead fulfilling lives. Now, here's a breakdown. So what we see here is, I'm not gonna call all of them out, but you can see it. You got 12% adults have a mobility disability with serious difficulties walking. That's 12%. 12% adults have cognitive disability. That's a learning disability. 7% of adults have independent living disability. 6% deaf. And let's look at the last one is 3.6% adults have self-care disability. That's a large number of disabilities. Now that's the breakdown of the general population. When it comes to correctional system, yeah, you see the numbers increase, right? According to the Office of Justice, programs reported that nearly 2 in 5, or 18% of state and federal prisoners had at least one disability, 2 in 5. And according to that same report, 3 in 10 reported having a cognitive disability. And this is what we see at the drop-in center a lot. We run into this a lot. And it's a big issue, but it's not being addressed. How the criminal justice system is playing on this. And I think we're looking at the jails to handle, especially cognitive disability or mental disabilities. It's falling on jail, then it's coming back to our community, and it's making our work more difficult, I would say. Now, again, as you can see from this breakdown, these figures, the disability community covers a large swath of society. To be undereducated or oblivious concerning these issues related to disabilities is a true disservice to the community, I feel. Let's dive in and come to understanding how we got here today surrounding disability issues. So let's look at a little bit of history, the history of disabilities. So the history of disabilities, as far as the treatment goes, the treatment and perspective of disability have undergone a transformation since the 1800s or 1900s. This has happened largely because people with disabilities have demanded and created these changes. It took the people themselves, the disabled people themselves, and we're gonna talk about that with Ms. Hartman. I gotta talk about the sit-in that she did. And just like the civil rights movement, the disability rights movement has a long history, example of activism, and it can be found among various disability groups dating back to the 1800s. Many events, laws, and people have shaped this development to date. The 1990 Americans with Disability Act, or the ADA, and the subsequent ADA Amendment Act 2008 are the moment's greatest legal achievements. The ADA is a major civil rights law that prohibits discrimination of people with disabilities in many aspects of public life. The disability rights movement continues to work hard for equal rights. So here's a timeline breakdown. So organizations by and for people with disabilities have existed since 1800s, right? And however, they exploded in popularity during the 1900s. In 1917, the Red Cross opened the first institution dedicated to training amputees and individuals with damaged limbs. Now, that was as a result of a lot of the soldiers who were coming back from the war during the World War I as well as World War II. And the soldiers were returning home. And while they were returning home, there were thousands of soldiers who were injured, as well as they couldn't find any work. So they had to retrain a lot of the soldiers. Now, and then, oh, hold on, I'm sorry. I lost my place a minute, and I had this, oh, there you go, okay. I lost my place. I had some of these things in memory, but hey, you can't remember all of it. So then you have, which is great here, you have the League. The League of Physical Handicap was organized in the 1930s, fighting for employment during the Great Depression. In the 1940s, a group of psychiatric patients came together to form what We Are Not Alone. It's called We Are Not Alone. They supported patients in the transition from hospital to community. In 1950, several local groups came together and formed the National Association for Retarded Children, or NARC. We don't call it that anymore. We don't use those terms, retarded children, NARC. By 1960, NARC had tens of thousands of members, most whom were parents. In 1973, the Rehabilitation Act was the first time the exclusion and segregation of people with disabilities has seen as discrimination. It was also the first time people with disabilities were viewed as a minority group. So that was the first time. This is when Section 504, which forbids organizations and employers from excluding, denying individuals with disabilities an equal opportunity to receive program benefits and services. It defines the rights of individuals with disabilities to participate in and have access to programs, benefits, and services. Now, Ms. Judy Harmon, Ms. Judy Human, she was critical. The 504 sitting where they took over 26 days, state capitol. And we need to do a whole show on this because there's a movie that everybody needs to watch. It's called Crip Cap. And the movie is really showing how that whole process of those individuals with disabilities came together to make this change. And they sat in, held down the Capitol for 26 days. Now, while they was in there holding down the Capitol and keeping it hostage, they blocked off a lot of the subways coming there and streets. And it was the Black Panthers who actually helped them. And this is where having that connection to other organizations. It was the Black Panthers who brought them water and food while these individuals with disabilities held the Capitol hostage until this bill was signed. See, sometimes it takes that type of activism, that type of heart, that type of passion to get things done. This is why, we gotta bring in more people with these type of disabilities into these type of just protests. They could be used in so many ways. But let me continue on. 1975, the Education of All Handicapped Children Act was passed, guaranteeing children with disabilities the right to public school education. That was 1975. And in April 1988, the first version of the ADA was introduced. Now, this version was actually introduced with individuals with disabilities keeping diaries of their experience and then using those diaries as a forepoint to go and then tell the Congress people as well as lawmakers, well, all the lawmakers, this is what we're facing. So everybody, like I said, you could become an activist. Anybody, we gotta initiate everyone. So on July 26, 1990, the American with Disability Act was signed. And this act was put into effect by Congress. It bans discrimination based on disability and requires public accommodations to be accessible. That's big. Anybody who is receiving public funding must make these, especially the newer buildings dating back, there's a cutoff, but the newer buildings must be accessible. They're receiving public funding, these areas must be accessible. So next slide, please, James. And this history is very important. Yeah. So the ADA, the American with Disability Act that was signed into effect, has 5 titles. Title 1. Title 1 is about employment. This says that people with disabilities should have the same equal employment opportunities and benefits as everyone else. There should be no discrimination. That's Title 1. It is enforced by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC. That's who that's enforced by. Title 2. Title 2 is a public entities and public transportations. This section talks about how they're needs to be a space and accommodation for wheelchairs on public transportation, and that the people with disabilities need to be able to access all state and local public housing. That's in Title II. Now, also in Title II, there should be no barriers in sales, rentals, or financing. And it also, it's a Fair Housing Act involved in that. Title III is a public accommodation and commercial facilities. They must arguably this is arguably one of the most important parts of ADA, because it says that people with disabilities will not be discriminated against in, dealing with this. So I think knowing these titles is very important moving forward, especially somebody with a disability. I wasn't ever sure of these titles until I was doing this research, so I want to share this with everybody. But in Title IV, oh, James, hold on, go back, stay right there. Yeah, Title IV is about telecommunication, which covers telephone, internet, as well as radio. And Title V is an entitlement provision, which basically ensures that people who exercise their rights under the ADA or assist other individuals exercising their rights are protected by the law. So Title IV or Title V it makes sure that they are protected, that they're not, discriminated against or brought up on any type of crazy charges or something. They got to protect them. So with that transition, I just like to think about, like, with knowing these 5 titles moving forward, and I'm hoping that this educates everyone on what each one of these titles mean and how they, how they interact with your life. If you find yourself running into some of these problems with a disability, we need to start having meetings on this and talk about and see if we can make these changes. I think only by bringing more awareness to each one of these titles and how they interact, we can make the changes necessary and create a more equitable and just society. And those are the main titles. So with the barriers, now the barriers, this is what we are seeing now, dealing with, like I say, a lot of this reentry work, what I do, these barriers here are very important. So these are the top 10 barriers in sequential orders. And just looking at them from the reentry for individuals with disabilities, it can be challenging, very challenging, due to all these barriers that may hinder their successful integration into the community. Somebody got hey, James, could you cut off her mic, please? Okay, thank you, James. Yeah, so with these barriers, with reentry, one, we see an attitudinal barrier or negative attitudes and stereotypes towards disabilities, which can limit opportunities for reentry, addressing the barriers by promoting disability awareness and inclusion through education, as well as training programs for employees, co-workers, and the general public can change that around. So how individuals see somebody with a disability, myself, we know that, Angie, cut off your mic, please.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. How we see these individuals, like I said, it took somebody giving me a chance, and it was at Parkland, because I ran into this. I had a lot of personal experience with this barrier, and it was one individual who gave me a chance. It was Evelyn Brown, and I'm gonna mention their names, and Nancy, as well as Cat Earl. And that right there started my career. Up until that point, I faced attitude barriers, and they was hindrance on things that they thought what I couldn't do or what I should be doing. And it just takes one person to believe in it. I think this is the biggest challenge right here. This is the biggest challenge. When you see somebody with a disability, don't feel sorry for them or just, just want to give them a pity party. Get them some help and let them move, like they say, open up the door and I get it myself. I don't need you to get it for me. I could do it. So that's one. Number two was lack of accessibility. I ran into this one a lot of times at jobs. Inadequate physical accessible buildings, accessibility in buildings, transportations, and technology. Now we can prevent individuals from having this issue by just providing just a few things. An elevator or a lift.
Don't mess with that VIP.
Angela, could you cut off your mic, please, Angela?
Thank you. Okay.
Angela, could you cut off your mic, please? Thank you. All right. Yeah, this accessibility is number two. You gotta have these things. If you got like a magnifier for individuals who have a visual impairment, as well as scooters, and you can have clips for someone who cannot grab clipboards or do well, like have an issue holding things. Just making employer or employee feeling welcome just with these little simple accessibility tools will help. I would say limited job opportunities. That's number three. Individuals with disabilities don't have a lot of job offers. I faced that issue. When I got injured, I already had a felony. Now, anyone who knows, once you have a felony, that eliminates you from 75% of the jobs automatically. You're out there's nothing you can do. You're out the job. So that left me 25% jobs that I could apply for. But of those 25%, due to physical disabilities, that brought it down to maybe about 5% of the jobs. So limited job opportunities is another barrier that someone in my position, disabled, Black, is finding himself in, as well as education. Number four, insufficient education and skill development. This one is very important because most of the experience as far as Black disability with a Black American, or in my case, I was undereducated. I went back to school and finished up my associates as well as my bachelor's. But before that, all I had was a high school diploma. I was undereducated, underskilled, and already it was a difficulty finding employment. So that barrier right there is a great barrier. And as you know now, today, there are very little jobs that you could go to if you don't have a license, training, or some type of degree. You just cut out. There's nothing you can do. So let's see, number five, lack of assistive technology. We talked about that. Absence of unaffordable and assistive devices, as well as technology, which hinder reentry. For improvement, access to assistive technology, provide financial support or subsidies and other training and effective use of assistive devices. That's a simple thing to do. Inadequate healthcare services. We see this as a barrier. Limited services to opportunities of appropriate healthcare services and rehabilitation can impede reentry efforts. Advocate for improved healthcare policies, as well as facilitate access to specialized care and promote the integration of disability. Then there's a lack of legal protection. And finally, I would say limited support systems. this is the biggest one. Now, I had a great support system. I had a great support system. I had a great family, a loving person that was there who helped me out, the kids as well. So, but I was blessed. I'm one of the lucky ones. I would say that. I'm definitely one of the lucky ones. I had great individuals around me who, when I did finally become employed, were even more supportive and to this day continue to support me. That's not normal. That is rare, very rare. And I know that I'm blessed. So thank heavens for that one. But limited support systems, which is another barrier. So people with disabilities are thus just dramatically, I would say, overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Overrepresented. According to the Bureau of Justice and Statistics, incarcerated individuals are three times as likely to report having a disability versus the non-incarcerated individual. Also, from that same report, 1 in 5 inmates have a serious mental illness. 1 in 5. Oh, man. I think we need to let these numbers kind of sink in a minute. 1 in 5 have a serious mental illness. Then they coming out. Now, what do you expect us to do with them? That individual is either gonna wind up back in jail or go back to the life that he or she, once lived. They're gonna go back into doing things that they shouldn't have done. And the jails are full with what's called low-hanging fruit. I would say, they're there, and they just don't have no way out. That's what I'm seeing. So let's see, being vocal about all these concerns, especially these barriers, we got to be more vocal about it regarding disability rights, as well as barriers to reentry, is the only true way to make change, is to help organize this group. So what we'd like to do at First Followers, and moving forward, we would like to incorporate, more individuals with disabilities to come in, help organize things, as well as just work with changing these laws and presenting more laws. It's going to take a shift. It's going to take a shift in the paradigm thinking. That's one. We got to become more vocal, shift in paradigm of thinking, recognizing disability as a form of discrimination rather than an inherent limitation, because that's how they used to look at it, as a inherent limitation. And 2, definition of a non-discrimination, Section 504, and subsequent acts emphasize societal barriers as well as prejudices as the cause of challenges faced by people with disabilities. The ADA awareness campaign, raising awareness about barriers and discrimination through the discrimination diaries, was a great initiative. I think we can actually incorporate that in the future. I never thought about that, using a diary to just highlight some of the issues that I'm going through. And I think as a guy, we really need, we struggle with that, because when you hear the word diary, we kind of like, but I do keep notes. So I might not call it a diary, I'll just call it a note, but it's my notebook. But even in that notebook, I think we need to start documenting these challenges that we're facing. That's the only way we're going to really get to the next level with this. As a people, I would say that. Just a brief summary of what we went over. Again, The disability right movement has made significant strides. I'm not taking nothing away from Ms. Harmon. I am blessed to have come in contact with her and everything they're doing. This is not about that, but this is just about putting a different perspective on an angle that I feel is not being addressed. Again, achievements of the ADA, as well as the path to our societal change, has been paid by the demands and efforts of the people with disabilities. However, ongoing work is essential to addressing remaining barriers, challenges, stereotypes, as well as foster a truly inclusive society that values and support individuals of all abilities. Just to remember this, addressing these barriers requires a collaborative effort involving individuals with disabilities, advocacy groups, employers, educational, institutional, healthcare providers, and policymakers by promoting awareness and fostering inclusion and implementing support policies. We can create a more inclusive society that facilitates successful reentry for individuals with disabilities. The Rehabilitation Act has been instrumental in advocating disability rights. However, while progress has been made, like I said earlier, there's still work to be done to achieve full equality and inclusion for individuals with disabilities. Continued efforts are needed to challenge the stereotypes, improve access to education and employment opportunities, make public places more accessible, and foster a culture of acceptance and inclusion in society. I'm gonna go back to something that Judy said in a video. Ms. Judy Harmon, she said in the video, it's diversity that makes us stronger. The disability fight movement cannot stand alone. We need to be working with all other groups and incorporating this movement to be more inclusive to disabled individuals. And I'm gonna give you a prime example. When a lot of the protests was going on, and I didn't see many individuals out there with disabilities, and we could have really used a lot more, and they could have participated in ways that we didn't allow them to participate, and it's easy to really do this. If you're gonna plan a march, we just say, for how long? How long is this march? Is gonna be, for what distance? And let them individuals know they could help organize. We can have them on the back scene, let them organize. This is gonna take a group effort, an entire group effort to move this ball forward as a community. I'm gonna say this. I wanna thank everybody for this discussion. I look to do more of these. I would like to do more. We really need to dive into the American Disability Act as well as the 504. That's going to take some heavy lifting, because there's a lot of components there, as well as how did they achieve this. And again, the movie Crit Camp, I suggest everybody watch that movie. It's a powerful movie. It'll bring you to tears, seeing that the struggle that these individuals went through just to get up them stairs is a powerful, powerful scene. But I'm gonna leave you guys with two motivational sayings that I feel very powerful. Two individuals I love, two of the writers. Number one is James Baldwin, who says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I gotta let that one sink in right there. So we all gotta be activists on this. If you see something wrong, that statement right there, I hold that one to heart. And the second one, Miss Maya Angelou, And she states that in all my work, what I try to say is that as human beings, we are more alike than we are unalike. Just because I'm disabled don't mean that I don't want the same achievements as the next man. I want the same opportunities as well as the same challenges and a life that I deserve to live. And again, I am an activist for individuals such as my niece. I got a nephew, as well as other family members and other individuals who deal with disabilities. And I do want to see a better life for all of them, as well as myself, as well as yourself, your people, and anybody that you love. And if you just keep living on this earth, eventually you will encounter a disability, you know, whether it's walking or just getting around. So with that being said, I'm gonna bid you all adieu, a great night. I thank you for joining me. Love you all, Ms. Cat Earl, everyone else. If you have any questions, please, you know, this is the time. I'll open up the floor for James. You got any questions out there that you need for me to address? Barbara Kessel too. Thank you, Barbara.
Got a lot of thank yous.
Now, thank you.
I have a
Thank you.
question. Can we ask questions?
Yeah,
Yeah, go
sure.
ahead.
Come on.
I'm wondering if there's been any thought about forcing jails and prisons to be compliant with the Disabilities Act, the ADA, because they are not. And of course, it's just there's so many things they do to treat people badly. But I mean, one example I found when I was working in the jail, we had so many people that asked for large print books from books to prisoners. And it turned out that they were not impaired. They just needed glasses, reading glasses.
Wow.
You know, and there's a prisoner right now in Livingston County, the guy that attacked the abortion clinic, who lost a lens out of his eyeglass when he did this, and asked for eyeglasses because he can't read with just one lens. And this is in Kankakee. They won't even consider it. And there's people in wheelchairs, as you said. There are people of all kinds of disabilities in jail and prison, and they purposely, I think, don't want to bother to help, to do anything that help them. And they have to be, I mean, they could be sued, is what I'm trying to say. What do you think about that?
I think you're dead on. And we had a member with us. We had a member with us who used the wheelchair, and he was talking about how he was limited, certain areas of the prison he couldn't go. And I'm with you. I'm actually now looking into a lot of this now. And I think I agree. Now, there is some guidelines to that ADA Act. Now, the jails was built at a certain time. They do what's called weighing it in. The building is built at a certain time. Then they can either, you know, get around it. This is how I think that a lot of prisons are getting around it. But the newer jails and facilities, according to the ADA Act moving forward, they must be compliant. Anybody receiving federal money must be compliant, unless it was on one of those dates or times that was before that period. But going back to what you said, I think it needs to be organized now. This is why we're bringing up this issue, that it's overlooked. The disability movement as a whole has been pushing on a general basis, but now this cultural aspect of how the prison industrial system is playing on this, we're seeing it. And the jails are not accommodating, like you're saying. So that needs to be the next step. I say let's start having meetings on it. We could come in and talk about it and seeing what can we put forward, what type of legislation. We have ears that we could get to and get some of this information to them. So I totally agree with you, Barbara. Totally. Yeah, thank you for that comment. But no, I'm not sure anything that's moving forward as far as legal aspects, but I will look further into a lot of this.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Tygar, if I could just add one thing on this. The whole question of the ADA has been a big issue in terms of the jail construction in Champaign County. And I mean, it's been some source of pressure on them to redo the jail, to upgrade the jail and make it more accessible and compliant with the ADA. So there's kind of and there's been tension around that. Do we make the jail more compatible for ADA, or do we make society more compatible for ADA and get less people in the jail?
Yeah, well, I think, like, going back to what Barbara was saying, and I think that's the eventuality. I would love to make society less compatible for jail, but at this time, seeing where we at, because you saw the numbers. You know, you're dealing with one out of 5 cognitive impairment, and we see a lot of these low-hanging fruits coming out of there. We seeing most of the guys in there for drug crimes, or either stealing or, you know, doing something very basic. So we're not, you know, these are not white collar crimes. We're definitely dealing with some learning disability here, and it's just overpopulating the jail. So I think right now, and that puts me on the fence somewhere, as you know, I don't want to see any more new jails built, but they are going to have to become compliant some type of way. So somewhere along there, we're going to have to weigh this out. That's what I feel. Anyone else? Okay.
Good evening. Excuse me. I had a question. Is it designed for things to be at a disability and allow, you know, the system to just trap people in with, just corporations trying to capitalize on a culture of people to create fictitious color of law acts that will make you disabled? Because when you don't have any opportunities or things available to you, it's like it sets you up to have mental disabilities where you can't function and be productive. What is the best strategy that you feel that'll give us a chance as individuals, human beings, and people that has rights to live on earth and prosper, that we need to address, that'll give us opportunity to be better citizens here in this county?
That's a lot to swallow there, man. And if I had that answer, I have a Nobel Peace Prize right now. Seriously, I really would. They would have me in the news, because I'm sure there's a systematic approach to this. I have no doubt of that. The school to prison pipeline is a definite reality. That's not a myth. That is real. And we see these schools undereducated on purpose. I went to school at Hardigan, just to give you an example. It's located 39th and State Street. We had books there, science books, that was talking about one day they're going to go to the moon. You know, it already happened. So you're undereducated on purpose. You know, they're not teaching you fundamentals or how to think. They're just, you know, throwing all this information at you and want you to repeat it. But is it helpful information? That's the question. So I have no doubt that there's a system in place to keep this system going. The jails get paid to keep it at capacity, 90% capacity. Jails make money doing this through the state. Now we could start looking at that as a people, as a group. And this is why, you know, we're doing this whole thing of disability rights, incarceration, these whole things, how they intersect. We want to bring that up because we're not even talking about the guys, just like you said, once they go into the jail, now they're mentally damaged. You know, that jail experience is damaging, man. They come out of there and they, you know, they got anxiety issues, PTSD, they deal with all that. So if they wasn't messed up before they went to jail, they messed up after that. That I'm pretty sure. Now you want them to get out here and try to function normally. He's going back. You know, he's going back. He got used to that life. And then you talking about guys that's doing 10 to 20 years. Now they got to come out here and adjust to this. After all that damage, psychological damage, if he wasn't messed up, if he didn't have a disability, I guarantee you that experience right there, oh, you got one now. So I guess the strategy there goes back to what James was saying. We gotta create a society that's not built for jails or given that trauma. That is trauma. That is trauma. And again, most of the trauma that's coming, most of the disability trauma that's happening in the Black community comes through trauma, guns, fighting, or either something happened, like mine, I was shot. So, you know, we got to figure out a way to avoid the trauma. That'll be one of the strategies. We could lessen the trauma. Maybe we could slow this down.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you everyone for staying on, and look forward to having future dialogues about this and some action, eh?
Yeah, this action. And I apologize for going over. We wasn't planning on going that far, but I did want to delve into the history. And I think we need to do another of these videos and just focus on the ADA. And I say after the video, I would like to do just talk about some planning, some strategies. Because not only do we want to bring this information to you, but we need to start thinking about strategies on organizing, how to move forward. You know, we need to build this thing from the ground up. This has to be a grassroots effort, started from the ground up. And you ready to take on the fight? Because this is a fight that really touches us all, old, young, everybody. So thank you too, Kathy. Love Kat. Yep. So, okay, more videos. I see Karen. So Karen said, yes, more videos. If we get more of those yes videos, I would do more. And